For Jews demand signs and Greeks seek wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to Jews and folly to Gentiles. But to those who are called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ, the power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than men, and the weakness of God is stronger than men. The wisdom of our foolish gospel.
You know, it's one thing to wrestle with your purpose before faith, and it feels like such a different battle than after you receive salvation. Before, my focus, my purpose was trying to figure out what I should do for my job, what I should study. If I didn't go to school, then was I gonna try and find an internship? Was I gonna try and go directly into the business marketplace, wait tables and save up money and get my own apartment and kind of just figure it out from there? Was I gonna try to travel and really figure out the creative side of me, or experience different cultures and just learn more about how humans function in ways outside of the ones that I understand? And there were so many options that it became so crippling. But after salvation and after studying the character of God, those things seem so little, like so minuscule and so temporary. After you're saved, you're just on fire and you really want to just give your whole heart to Christ. And naturally the best way to do that is just going straight into ministry. But ministry looks so different depending on the gifts that God has given you. I mean, even between two shepherds, they could have two completely different approaches and yet both be sanctified and anointed by His Spirit. His hand could be on both shepherds that lead in completely different ways because they've been given different sheep to lead and different ways to adapt to the calling in which it has been called. I mean, obviously, it would be amazing, at least for our flesh, if God had given us a purpose that was just perfect for us right there and right now, but it seems that every single time that God calls us into something, the calling us into is a step higher, it's a step above. He's calling us to grow, and that's why it seems so difficult. But with that can come so much discouragement, a feeling like an imposter in a lot of ways. There's a certain point to where you start to ask God, why am I here? You don't need me. Like I am who you say I am, but Lord, you're God. You're perfect. You are holy. You are anointed in ways that my mind literally cannot comprehend. I mean, physically, I cannot stand before you right now and live, except for if you give me something, give me a bit of yourself, give me the wholeness of yourself to dwell within me, that I might be able to then withstand. It's like, what am I supposed to do? And then the ideology of what can the clay say to the potter really does come into perspective. Lord, use me, mold me, shape me, seems to be the answer to that wrestling. And I'm not so sure that the wrestling is even one that we should be embracing in a lot of ways. I mean, the journey to the destination, there's a beauty to it, but surely it can't be the best part. It sounds good when we're thinking about a climb to the mountain. You might get up at 5 a.m. when it's dark, and then like you get halfway and then you start to see the sunrise and it gets all better, and the more you climb, the more you see. But this life doesn't seem to reflect that in a lot of ways. I mean, it almost seems like all of our lives are climbing through this fog. We've been given this mission, we've been given this hope, this assurance that there is a mountain above the clouds, and we think that we can see before we enter into it. And there's a comfort in that of, Lord, I don't want to walk blindly into this and just trust that you have something for me, trust that I'll be safe in doing it, that my family will be safe. I mean, am I going to give my everything to go on this hike when I could be doing so many other things? I could be productive in so many other ways. But then as we keep climbing, sometimes there's a huge rush of wind, and that kind of just clears the path so we know which way to go when we're just getting ready to break down because we feel so lost. And He's faithful to show us the way, but it's very easy to forget the end goal, especially when that end goal, naturally, it's something that we come up with our minds. I mean, we've all pictured heaven, we've all pictured what it's like and what it's going to be like to sit with Christ and sit in glory, and there be no more weeping, no more sin, no more death, no mourning. But what happens when you get to the point to where you realize that the way that you pictured it is not necessarily the way that it is? I think the real problem is that we're so quick to hold on to a hope of something that we've imagined rather than holding on to hope itself. And in a lot of ways it seems stupid, you know? Like, why would I hope in the idea of hope? And if I apply that to the rest of the fruits of the Spirit, it feels like it starts to make a little bit more sense. Am I joyful because of the things that are going on around me? I mean, sure. What happens when the things around me that used to bring me joy are now crumbling? Is it joy itself that makes me joyful? Not just the existence of the emotion of joy or the feeling of joy, but the source of it. Same way with love, peace, patience, kindness, goodness. We have to hope in these things as something that's set beyond whatever we're walking through, because of the fact that it's not sunshines and rainbows most of the time. And even thinking of a rainbow, like, we love to see them, but it has to rain. There have to be certain conditions, whether from rain or just other things going on in the atmosphere, for us to be able to witness that rainbow. The colors are always there. In fact, we can see a small amount of light that even the animals on earth are able to witness. But with this understanding, why does it seem so hard to then translate that to our purpose? You know, God, surely I can't just be here to seek after you. There's things that need to be done. But how can I say that looking at the flowers that He's created, breathing the oxygen that He made, with the lungs He designed, hearing voices of children whom He knew before the foundations of the earth? When we really think of the complexity of what God has done as a gift to us, when we clearly don't deserve it, it feels like we forget Him so often when we worry about these things. How often have I continuously forgotten the fullness of the riches of God and His glory is available at my disposal at any time according to His will? If He wills it to be done, it will be done, and there's nothing that can stop that. We need to dive into the scriptures to understand seeking out who He is, giving us assurance. If I can go out in nature and see God, I need some type of assurance that that's not just me thinking. And when I go to the scriptures and hear Him speaking directly to others, and through that He somehow speaks to me, and it lines up with the consciousness and the way that He reveals Himself through His creation. I mean, it's a beautiful symphony of all of life, all of creation, all of the wisdom and knowledge and power in the world coming together. And the only question is whether I believe Him. Will I hold Him accountable to that word and trust Him that He is faithful, that He is just, that He is patient and loving and so gentle with us, that He is good and in Him there is no evil, that His plans are for me to prosper in the way that He sees right for me to prosper? I mean, it's no question that God has given us so many things to bless us. In fact, we can't even enjoy those blessings that He's poured out abundantly on all of us unless we're in the perspective of seeing Him in those things. This garden that I'm sitting in can so easily become a burden to whoever's tending to it, and we forget the beauty and the miracle of what it is for these flowers to even grow. It's not really something that we think about too often, but how complex is that process of being born again in new life? And does that transfer into the way that we look at other people around us? Is there a godly confidence of the things that He's promised us that we can hope in? Our mind, our body, our spirit, if all of them are focused on the things that are around us and not searching for Him through those things, then we have to be searching for something else. Our flesh, we already know what that's searching for. Instant gratification. It's searching for sin. It cannot search for God. And if we're being led by our flesh, our mind becomes corrupted and led by the things of the flesh. but a mind that is set on the Spirit and controls the body to then carry your mind, carry your spirit towards seeking out those things. My mind controls my eyes and where I look. If my body is governed by a mind that is set on the flesh, I will continue struggling with lust, continue struggling with greed, checking other people's pockets, looking around, seeing nice cars, wishing maybe not I should take that away from that person, but I wish I had that. But as a man, what confidence and what joy and what stability and what stoic is found in wanting exactly what God has for you. I mean, in mind, in spirit, being in perfect harmony, set on the things of God. We know the Holy Spirit is the only one that knows the will of the Father. So how are we so often grieving the Spirit by trying to come up with these answers on our own? But I'm so confused. I'm so lost. I don't know my purpose, and it feels like the more I sit, the more I sin. But the problem is just doing something isn't going to fix the problem. Because if I just go do anything, you want to start in content creation, just starting is not enough. You will start and you will stop because there's nothing carrying you. There's no seeking. But if in seeking, you pick up a camera to record yourself or to record others, if through the lens of that camera, you are seeking answers from God, He will give them to you. I had no idea what this video was going to be about. I had no idea where I was going to go with it. I had no confidence that I was fit to give advice or guidance or try and give an effort in pouring out wisdom to anyone else because of my own struggles, my own faults, my own sin. And yet He showed up. He's met me where I'm at. He's provided abundantly. And until we get through our thick heads what that actually means, I mean, the peace of God is not something that can be faked. It's not something that can be found given the right circumstances. There are definitely alternatives to it, but they don't last. And in the end, they lead to death. Alcohol is a big thing. It makes you feel so good. But then what about your liver, your kidneys, your organs that are responsible for then filtering that good time out of your body? The drunkenness, that lust, the anger is not something that can be afforded. We put ourselves in such vulnerable positions because we don't really want to wrestle and deal with the idea of how vulnerable we already are. It is so easy for us to fall into, God, if I'm weak anyway, this can't hurt. But there's a hope that we don't have to feel that way. Paul was boasting in his weaknesses. Paul had struggles that a lot of us can't even comprehend. And yet he boasted in those. When he said that he was the chief of all sinners, he wasn't making an overall declarative statement that this is the truth, that he is the most sinful man. He was coming from his own heart. No, guys, I'm not a good person. I've struggled with things that I really don't even want to talk about. And it's only by the grace of God that they no longer reign over me. They no longer conquer me. I mean, things that you're dealing with them because of how weak and how vulnerable you are. But you don't have to give in to that anymore. You don't. You're not supposed to know the answers. If you did know the answers to everything, it would cripple you. You're not fit to bear this weight. That is why Christ said, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." Why He tells us that His yoke, that partnership is easy. It's not a heavy weight to carry because He is carrying it with us. This isn't some religion where God is just giving you this grace and pardoning you. Not Him just waving His wand and saying, you're forgiven, you're good, and I'm going to make this easy for you. That would have to take out somebody's free will, surely. But Christ, who did and accomplished perfectly the will of the Father, fully God, fully man, became a mediator between us and the Father so that we understood that we have somebody, and not just anyone, but the God of the universe in human flesh, to make a way for us, to stand next to us in the fire, to stand next to us while we're under the yoke, and to walk with us through that. If you put 450 pounds on that barbell and try and lift it, most of you aren't going to. And yet imagine being able to do that because Christ said that He wants you to lift that weight. In the entirety of that time, are you then gonna focus on yourself and believe in yourself? Okay, He said I can lift this weight, so I'm gonna lift it up. No, you are gonna be pleading and begging, Lord, if you don't lift this, this is gonna crush my chest. If you do not lift this, I'm not going to be able to lift it up. So quickly, that's how the gifts that he's given us can become so self-centered, but the weaknesses can become so self-centered also. Because if we know we're weak, but somehow he told us that we're strong in him, does that now mean that I look in the mirror and just speak these affirmations? Or do I look in the mirror and see myself for who I am and then run to him? That's such a drastic difference, and our souls depend on it. Our souls truly depend on who we run to. As a man, who do you run to? There's a spirit behind every single object that you use for gratification outside of Christ. Running to my Father, who is also my friend, who is also my bridegroom, who is also my creator and first and foremost, the God of the universe. I mean, it feels so weird to even have that reverence of that this is the God of the universe because of how approachable he makes himself to us. That he would call us a son, and that might not sit right with some of you until you remember the cross. It wasn't free. That sonship, that friendship, having you as his bride, he paid for you in blood, in torturous agony, physically, spiritually. So if there's any peace that is possible to leave, any hope that I can give, any joy, it would be that any seeking that you do for the Lord will never be in vain. You do not have to know. You're not supposed to know. You are not going to know. You're not going to have the answers. You're not going to understand. And it's going to get to a point to where you just feel hopeless. He allows that so that we're reminded of the world that we live in and what sin does to our relationship with him. And yet he shows up every time to show that despite those things, he reigns above it all. He wasn't forced to accept you into Christ. He chose you before the foundations of the world in Christ Jesus. How can we be sad when we remember that?